The train's whistle pierced the morning air as it pulled into Copper Ridge Station, carrying Catherine Sullivan and her 8-year-old son Michael toward an uncertain future. Kate pressed her face against the dusty window, watching the small, frontier town emerge from the Nevada desert like a mirage. Her calloused hands smoothed the wrinkles from her best dress, the same one she'd worn to her husband's funeral 2 years ago. The letter from Dr. Marcus Thornfield crinkled in her pocket, promising a new beginning for a widow and her child. Michael's wide eyes reflected both excitement and apprehension as the locomotive's brakes squealed against the rails. This arrangement represented their only escape from the tenements of Chicago, where Kate had barely survived on seamstress wages while hiding her past as a Pinkerton detective. The platform bustled with activity as Kate and Michael stepped down. Their single trunk containing everything they owned. Dust swirled around Kate's boots as she scanned the crowd for Dr. Thornfield's familiar figure. She'd memorized every detail from his photograph. The town spread before them like scattered dice against the backdrop of red hills, its wooden buildings weathered by sun and wind. A few curious townspeople glanced their way, whispering behind gloved hands about the mail-order bride and her son. Kate's detective instincts, dormant but never dead, automatically catalogued faces and potential escape routes. The desert air carried the scent of sage and possibility, mixed with the acrid smell of coal smoke from the departing train. Minutes stretched into an uncomfortable hour as Kate waited by the station, Michael tugging at her skirt with growing restlessness. She approached the station master, a grizzled man with tobacco-stained teeth who regarded her with poorly concealed pity. "Waitin' for Doc Thornfield, are ya?" he asked, shaking his head slowly. "Ain't seen him for nigh on 3 days now." Kate's stomach dropped as she processed this information, her mind immediately shifting into investigative mode. Despite her heart's disappointment, other passengers had claimed their belongings and departed, leaving Kate and Michael increasingly conspicuous on the empty platform. The sun climbed higher, and Kate realized that whatever she'd expected from this arranged marriage, it wasn't abandonment at a train station. Before we continue, leave your like, share our story, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Marshal Jake Reynolds approached with measured steps, his badge catching the sunlight as he removed his hat respectfully. "Ma'am, I reckon you're Mrs. Sullivan," he said, his voice carrying the weight of uncomfortable news. "Doc Thornfield, well, he's gone missing 3 nights past." The words hit Kate like a physical blow, shattering her carefully constructed hopes for a stable future. "Missing," she repeated, her former training automatically questioning the terminology. Reynolds shifted uncomfortably, clearly believing what the rest of the town suspected, that the doctor had fled rather than face his mail-order bride. Michael pressed closer to his mother, sensing the tension in adult voices. Kate's mind raced between personal devastation and professional curiosity about what had really happened to Marcus Thornfield. Reynolds offered to escort them to the boarding house, his manner suggesting charity more than investigation. "Doc's been actin' strange lately," he admitted as they walked down Main Street, Michael's hand firmly clasped in Kate's. His missed appointments seemed distracted-like. Kate absorbed every detail: the doctor's office with its drawn curtains, the nervous glances from townspeople, the way conversations stopped when they passed. Her detective instincts catalogued inconsistencies in the marshal's casual dismissal of a missing person case. The boarding house loomed ahead, a two-structure that would serve as their temporary refuge while Kate decided whether to return to Chicago in defeat. But something in the marshal's evasive manner and the town's collective assumption about Marcus's departure triggered her buried investigative instincts. That evening in their modest room, Kate tucked Michael into the narrow bed while her mind churned with unanswered questions. The boarding house owner, Mrs. Garrett, had been full of gossip about the poor abandoned bride and speculation about Dr. Thornfield's sudden departure. "Probably got cold feet," the woman had whispered, but Kate's trained eye had noticed details others missed. The doctor's medical bag still in his office, his horse in the stable, his personal effects undisturbed. Through the thin walls, she could hear other guests discussing the scandal of the mail-order bride whose groom had vanished. Kate stared out the window at the star-filled desert sky, feeling the familiar stirring of determination that had once made her one of the Pinkerton agency's most successful female operatives. The next morning, Kate made a decision that surprised even herself. "We're staying," she announced to Mrs. Garrett over breakfast. Ignoring the woman's raised eyebrows and Michael's questioning look, Dr. Thornfield wouldn't just disappear without explanation. Her declaration drew stares from other diners, who clearly considered her either naive or desperate. Kate had spent the sleepless night analyzing what she knew. A respected doctor doesn't abandon his practice, his belongings, and his responsibilities without compelling reason. The Pinkerton training she'd hidden since her marriage whispered that Marcus Thornfield hadn't fled. Something had happened to him. Michael studied his mother's face and recognized the determined expression that appeared whenever she faced a challenge. Kate's first critical choice was made. She would investigate Marcus's disappearance herself, regardless of what the town believed. Kate's investigation began with a visit to Dr. Thornfield's office, where she convinced Marshal Reynolds to let her examine the scene. The medical practice occupied the ground floor of a neat building on Main Street, its interior revealing the organized mind of a dedicated physician. Bottles of medicines lined shelves with military precision, and patient records were meticulously maintained in Marcus's careful handwriting. But Kate's detective eye caught details the marshal had missed: a chair knocked slightly askew, medicine bottles with broken seals, and most telling, a patient ledger with several recent entries torn out. "Looks normal to me," Reynolds muttered, clearly uncomfortable with Kate's thorough examination. Kate said nothing, but her trained instincts screamed that this was a crime scene poorly disguised as a simple departure. The choice to investigate rather than flee back to Chicago would define everything that followed. Nurse Priscilla Adams arrived at the office while Kate was still examining the premises. Her appearance perfectly timed to seem coincidental. A pretty woman with calculating eyes, Priscilla expressed theatrical concern about poor Dr. Thornfield's sudden departure. While watching Kate's reactions carefully, "He'd been so worried about something," Priscilla offered, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "Said he might need to go away for a while." Kate noted how Priscilla positioned herself between Kate and the medicine cabinet, and how her story provided convenient explanation for Marcus's absence. The nurse's performance seemed rehearsed, and Kate's instincts tagged her as someone hiding information. Michael, playing quietly in the corner, watched the adults with the keen observation of a child who'd learned to read dangerous situations. Kate realized she'd found her first person of interest in Marcus Thornfield's disappearance. That afternoon, Kate explored Copper Ridge with Michael, ostensibly familiarizing themselves with their new home while actually conducting reconnaissance. The town's layout revealed strategic points: the main road leading to mining camps, the railroad connection to larger cities, and isolated areas where someone could hide evidence. Kate struck up conversations with shopkeepers and residents, gradually building a picture of Dr. Thornfield as a respected but recently troubled man. "He'd been asking odd questions," confided the pharmacist, "about medicines going missing from other towns." Kate's pulse quickened at this revelation, recognizing the pattern of someone investigating illegal activity. The desert sun beat down as she and Michael walked the dusty streets, but Kate felt energized by the familiar thrill of uncovering clues. Her new life in Copper Ridge would begin with solving the mystery of her missing fiancé. Evening brought an unexpected visit from Marshal Reynolds, who seemed increasingly uncomfortable with Kate's presence in town. "Ma'am, might be best if you and the boy headed back east," he suggested, avoiding her direct gaze. "Doc Thornfield ain't coming back, and there's nothing here for you now." Kate studied the marshal's nervous manner, noting how his suggestion felt more like a warning than helpful advice. She thanked him politely while mentally cataloging his behavior as suspicious. Lawmen didn't usually discourage investigation of missing persons. Through the window, she watched Priscilla Adams hurrying past the boarding house, her medical bag clutched tightly against her chest. Michael had fallen asleep hours ago, but Kate remained alert, sensing undercurrents of deception flowing beneath Copper Ridge's surface. Her detective instincts, sharpened by years of training and hardened by personal loss, told her that Marcus Thornfield's disappearance was connected to something larger and more dangerous than a case of cold feet. The third night brought Kate's first real breakthrough when she decided to investigate the doctor's office after dark, leaving Michael safely asleep under Mrs. Garrett's watchful eye. Kate slipped through the shadows of Main Street with skills learned during covert Pinkerton operations. The office lock yielded to techniques she'd hoped never to use again, and moonlight filtering through the windows provided enough illumination for her search. Hidden behind a false back in Marcus's desk drawer, she discovered a journal documenting his investigation into missing medicines and suspected trafficking through the railroad. The final entry, dated the night before his disappearance, mentioned confronting PA tomorrow about the morphine shipments. Kate's heart pounded as she realized she'd entered a special world of crime and conspiracy, far removed from the simple mail-order-bride arrangement she'd originally sought. Marcus Thornfield hadn't abandoned her. He'd stumbled onto something that had cost him his freedom, possibly his life. Kate's discovery of Marcus's journal transformed her from abandoned bride to determined investigator, and she began developing bonds with townspeople who might aid her search. Mrs. Garrett proved unexpectedly ally when Kate confided her suspicions about foul play. The older woman's protective instincts aroused by Kate's courage and Michael's innocent vulnerability. "That boy needs his mama safe," Mrs. Garrett declared, and Dr. Thornfield was a good man who deserved better. Kate also cultivated a careful relationship with Tom Fletcher, the telegraph operator, whose position gave him knowledge of communications flowing in and out of Copper Ridge, the desert town. Initially hostile to the abandoned mail-order bride, gradually revealed residents willing to help someone genuinely concerned about their missing doctor. Kate's natural empathy, combined with her investigative skills, began building a network of support that would prove crucial in the dangerous days ahead. Michael, meanwhile, charmed the townspeople with his polite manner and quick intelligence, unconsciously gathering information through children's games and conversations. Kate's investigation into Nurse Adams intensified when she learned that Priscilla had access to the medical supply ordering system and the keys to the medicine storage. Through careful questioning of patients, Kate discovered that several had complained about receiving diluted or ineffective treatments in recent months. "My arthritis medicine ain't working like it used to," confided elderly Mrs. Patterson during a seemingly casual conversation at the general store. Kate began mapping a pattern of medical supply irregularities that coincided with Priscilla's increased responsibilities in the practice. The nurse's behavior grew more suspicious as Kate's presence in town continued, her theatrical grief about Dr. Thornfield's departure replaced by thinly veiled hostility. Kate realized she was walking a dangerous line. Her investigation was becoming obvious to the very person she suspected of involvement in Marcus's disappearance. The emotional commitment to finding the truth about Marcus had evolved beyond personal interest into a professional obligation to expose whatever criminal enterprise had claimed him. Marshall Reynolds's reluctance to investigate Marcus's disappearance began making more sense when Kate discovered his financial troubles through careful observation and subtle questioning. The lawman's modest salary couldn't account for his recently purchased new horse, upgraded equipment, and his wife's expensive new dresses from the general store. Kate's Pinkerton training had taught her to follow money trails, and Reynolds's improved circumstances coincided suspiciously with the timeline of missing medicines that Marcus had documented. During a tense conversation about her continued presence in Copper Ridge, Kate noticed how Reynolds's hand instinctively moved toward his gun when she pressed for details about the search for Marcus. "Some folks are better left unfound," he warned, his meaning unmistakably threatening. Kate realized that her investigation had uncovered corruption at the highest level of local law enforcement, making her mission exponentially more dangerous. The marshal's protection of whatever criminal enterprise had taken Marcus meant that she was entirely on her own in hostile territory. A breakthrough came when Michael, playing near the railroad tracks, discovered a torn piece of Marcus's coat, caught on a freight car coupling. The fabric, stained with blood, provided the first physical evidence that something violent had happened to the missing doctor. Kate's careful examination of the area revealed signs of a struggle, disturbed gravel, scuff marks, and most significantly, tracks leading away from the railroad toward the old mining camp in the hills. The discovery filled Kate with both hope and dread. Marcus might still be alive, but the blood evidence suggested he was seriously injured. She photographed the scene using a small camera from her detective kit, hidden since her Pinkerton days, documenting evidence that would be crucial if she survived to present it to higher authorities. Michael's find represented more than a clue. It was proof that Kate's investigative instincts were correct, and that somewhere in the unforgiving Nevada desert, Marcus Thornfield was fighting for his life. The emotional commitment to finding him alive intensified Kate's determination while adding urgency to her investigation. Kate's surveillance of Priscilla Adams revealed suspicious nighttime activities that confirmed the nurse's central role in the criminal conspiracy. Following at a safe distance using skills learned during covert Pinkerton operations, Kate tracked Priscilla to secret meetings at an abandoned mineshaft outside town. The nurse met with rough-looking men who loaded crates onto wagons under cover of darkness. their movements suggesting illegal transportation of stolen goods. Kate documented these activities from concealment, her heart racing as she realized the scope of the operation she'd uncovered. The stolen medicines were being systematically transported along railroad routes, with Copper Ridge serving as a crucial distribution point in a larger trafficking network. Marcus had apparently discovered this operation and paid for his knowledge. With his freedom, Kate's investigation had evolved from personal mission to professional obligation, but she remained one woman against organized criminals who had already demonstrated their willingness to use violence. The bonds she'd formed with townspeople would need to become a coalition if she hoped to succeed against such dangerous adversaries. The emotional stakes intensified dramatically when Kate realized that Michael had been asking innocent questions around town that were drawing dangerous attention to their investigation. Priscilla Adams had begun showing unusual interest in the boy, offering him candy and asking about his mother's activities with a calculating sweetness that made Kate's blood run cold. "That nurse lady wants to know if we're staying or leaving," Michael reported innocently, not understanding the threatening implications of the inquiry. Kate's maternal instincts clashed with her investigative determination as she realized that her search for Marcus was putting her son in mortal danger. The criminals had eliminated Dr. Thornfield to protect their operation, and they wouldn't hesitate to harm a woman and child who threatened their lucrative enterprise. Kate faced an agonizing choice between abandoning her search to protect Michael or finding a way to expose the conspiracy before the criminals silenced them permanently. Her emotional commitment to both Marcus and Michael created an impossible situation that would require all her skill and courage to resolve. The investigation had become a desperate race against time, with the lives of everyone she cared about hanging in the balance. Kate's discovery of Marcus's journal led her to investigate the abandoned Copper Creek mine, where the final clues to his disappearance might be hidden. The treacherous desert terrain tested her determination as she and Michael approached the mining complex during daylight hours, ostensibly on a nature walk while actually conducting reconnaissance. The old workings revealed signs of recent activity: fresh wagon tracks, scattered medical supplies, and most ominously, a makeshift prison area with chains attached to support beams. Kate's heart pounded as she realized that Marcus might have been held captive here, possibly still alive somewhere in the maze of tunnels and abandoned buildings. The discovery of his medical bag, partially hidden under debris, confirmed that he had been brought to this location against his will. Michael's sharp eyes spotted additional clues that adult attention might have missed: fabric threads, distinctive boot prints, and disturbed earth that suggested recent digging. Kate photographed everything with her concealed camera, building evidence while fighting overwhelming emotions about what Marcus might have endured in this desolate place. The investigation took a dangerous turn when Kate attempted to gather information about the mine's current operations by questioning longtime residents about recent activity in the area. Old Pete, a prospector who lived near the abandoned workings, initially seemed helpful, but his demeanor changed dramatically when Kate mentioned seeing fresh tracks and equipment. "You'd best stay away from there, ma'am," he warned with genuine fear in his voice. "Some things are better left alone." His terror was palpable as he described hearing sounds of vehicles and voices during recent nights, suggesting the criminal operation was more extensive than Kate had initially realized. The old man's warnings revealed that local residents were aware of dangerous activities, but too frightened to report them to Marshal Reynolds, whom they clearly didn't trust. Kate realized that the conspiracy involved not just medical theft but had intimidated an entire community into silence through fear of retaliation. The scope of the criminal enterprise she'd uncovered made her feel increasingly isolated and vulnerable, but also more determined to expose the truth that had cost Marcus his freedom. Kate's surveillance efforts intensified when she observed a pattern of nighttime activity between the mine and the railroad station, with wagons traveling the route every few days under cover of darkness. Using her Pinkerton training in covert observation, she positioned herself to document these movements while keeping Michael safely hidden at a secure vantage point. The operation involved multiple participants: Priscilla Adams coordinating from the medical office, Marshal Reynolds providing protection from law enforcement interference, and several unknown men handling the actual transportation and distribution of stolen medicines. Kate's photographs captured license plates, faces, and operational details that would serve as crucial evidence, if she survived, to present them to federal authorities. The criminal enterprise was clearly generating substantial profits, explaining Reynolds's improved circumstances and Priscilla's confident demeanor despite the missing doctor investigation. Kate realized that Marcus had stumbled onto a sophisticated operation worth killing to protect, and that her own investigation was approaching the same level of danger that had cost him his freedom. The evidence she'd gathered made her a primary threat to criminals who had already demonstrated their willingness to use violence. A terrifying escalation occurred when Cafe returned to the boarding house to find that someone had searched their room while she and Michael were investigating the mine area. Their few possessions had been carefully examined and replaced. But Kate's trained eye caught the subtle signs of professional search techniques. Most alarmingly, Michael's favorite book had been moved, and Kate realized that the intruders were sending a message about the child's vulnerability. Mrs. Garrett was clearly shaken when Kate questioned her about unusual visitors, admitting that Marshall Reynolds had stopped by, asking pointed questions about Kate's activities and future plans. He seemed mighty interested in when you might be leaving town, the older woman reported with obvious concern. Kate understood that the criminals were escalating their pressure, moving from surveillance to intimidation in an attempt to drive her away before she could expose their operation. The threat to Michael transformed Kate's investigation from professional obligation to desperate maternal protection, but also revealed that the conspiracy was becoming unstable under pressure. She had to move quickly before the criminals decided that elimination was preferable to intimidation. Kate's most significant discovery came when she found evidence that Marcus was still alive, hidden in one of the deeper mine shafts where the criminals thought he would never be found. A coded message scratched into the wall of an abandoned tunnel revealed Marcus's engineering knowledge as he attempted to mark his location for potential rescuers. The message included references that only someone with his medical training would understand, confirming his identity and indicating that he was injured but coherent enough to leave clues. Kate's elation at finding proof of Marcus's survival was tempered by the realization that he was imprisoned in an extremely dangerous location, guarded by criminals who would kill rather than allow their operation to be exposed. The mine's unstable condition made any rescue attempt treacherous, requiring careful planning and resources that Kate didn't possess. Michael's discovery of freshwater containers hidden near the mine entrance suggested that someone was regularly supplying the prisoner, meaning the criminals were keeping Marcus alive for reasons Kate couldn't yet understand. The knowledge that her fiancé was suffering somewhere in the dark tunnels intensified Kate's determination, while adding desperate urgency to her mission. Time was running out, and she needed help from someone with the authority and resources to challenge the criminal conspiracy. The investigation reached a critical point when Kate realized that the stolen medicines were being diluted and sold to desperate patients in mining camps throughout the region, with the profits funding a larger criminal enterprise. Marcus's journal revealed that he had traced the operation through several states, suggesting connections to organized crime networks that extended far beyond Copper Ridge. The scope of the conspiracy explained why local law enforcement was compromised and why the criminals were willing to use extreme violence to protect their interests. Kate's evidence collection had grown substantial enough to present to federal authorities, but she needed to survive long enough to make contact with honest lawmen outside the corrupted local jurisdiction. The pattern of medical theft was causing real harm to patients who received ineffective treatments, adding moral urgency to Kate's mission beyond her personal commitment to finding Marcus. She realized that exposing this conspiracy would save not only Marcus but potentially hundreds of patients who depended on legitimate medical supplies. The first serious threat to her investigation was materializing as the criminals recognized that her evidence could destroy their entire operation. The threat became immediate and deadly when Priscilla Adams confronted Kate directly, her pretense of concerned nursing colleague finally abandoned in favor of open hostility. "You should have left town when you had the chance," Priscilla warned during what appeared to be a casual encounter outside the general store. "Accidents happen to people who ask too many questions." The nurse's transformation from theatrical grief to calculated menace revealed the true extent of her involvement in Marcus's disappearance and the criminal conspiracy. Kate realized that her investigation had reached a point where the criminals could no longer ignore her activities, making her and Michael targets for elimination. The confrontation occurred in broad daylight on Main Street, suggesting that Priscilla felt confident enough in her local protection to make threats openly. Kate's response required careful balance between showing she understood the danger while not revealing the full extent of her evidence collection. Michael witnessed the exchange, his young face reflecting fear and confusion as he sensed the adult tension. The first serious threat had materialized exactly as Kate's Pinkerton training had predicted, confirming that her investigation was approaching the crucial phase where criminals would resort to violence rather than allow exposure. Kate's discovery of additional evidence in Marcus's hidden files revealed the true scope of the medical trafficking conspiracy and identified the crucial allies she would need to expose it safely. Among the doctor's papers, she found correspondence with a federal agent investigating similar operations across the Western Territories, someone who could provide the authority and resources necessary to challenge the local corruption. Agent Samuel Hayes of the Treasury Department had been working with Marcus to document the flow of stolen medicines and illegal profits, making him the perfect ally for Kate's dangerous mission. The correspondence revealed that Marcus had arranged to meet with Agent Hayes the night he disappeared, suggesting that the criminals had discovered the federal investigation and moved to eliminate the threat. Kate realized that contacting Hayes would provide the crucial support she needed, but also recognized that reaching federal authorities while surrounded by hostile local law enforcement would require extreme caution and careful planning. The revelation about the federal investigation added legitimacy to Kate's evidence collection, while providing hope that justice might be possible despite the local corruption. Marcus's preparation for the federal meeting explained his recent nervous behavior and his detailed documentation of criminal activities. Kate's preparation for the crucial revelation involved securing her evidence and ensuring Michael's safety through carefully planned contingencies that drew on all her Pinkerton experience. She created multiple copies of Marcus's journal and her investigative notes, hiding them in various locations around Copper Ridge to prevent their destruction if the criminals discovered her activities. Mrs. Garrett proved invaluable as a trusted ally, agreeing to protect Michael and relay messages to federal authorities if Kate failed to return from her planned confrontation with the conspiracy. The boarding house owner's fierce loyalty to Kate and Michael provided the maternal support network that Kate needed to operate effectively while protecting her son. Kate also established emergency procedures with the telegraph operator, creating coded messages that would alert distant authorities if local communication was compromised. Her military precision in organizing these preparations reflected years of training in hostile environments, but also revealed the depth of danger she recognized in challenging the criminal conspiracy. The crucial revelation about federal involvement had provided hope, but Kate understood that survival would depend on meticulous planning and careful execution of her strategy to expose the truth. The identification of Agent Hayes as her crucial ally required Kate to establish secure communication with federal authorities while avoiding detection by the corrupted local law enforcement network. Using her knowledge of covert communication techniques, Kate composed carefully coded telegraph messages that would alert Hayes to her situation without revealing sensitive information to potential interceptors. The correspondence revealed that Marcus had been working systematically to document not just the local conspiracy but its connections to organized crime throughout the Western Territories, making his evidence invaluable to federal investigations. Kate's messages to Agent Hayes included references that only someone familiar with Marcus's investigation would understand, establishing her credibility as a legitimate ally rather than a potential trap. The federal agent's response confirmed that he was indeed investigating the medical trafficking network and had been concerned about Marcus's sudden silence. Hayes agreed to coordinate with Kate's investigation while providing resources and authority that local criminals couldn't corrupt or intimidate. The alliance with federal law enforcement transformed Kate's desperate solo mission into a coordinated operation with the potential to expose the entire criminal conspiracy. Kate's investigation culminated in the discovery of the central warehouse, where stolen medicines were processed and prepared for distribution throughout the criminal network. The facility, hidden in the abandoned section of the mine complex, contained enough evidence to expose the entire conspiracy and secure convictions for all participants. Kate's careful surveillance revealed the operation's schedule, security measures, and key participants, providing the intelligence that Agent Hayes would need to coordinate a successful federal raid. The warehouse also contained additional evidence of Marcus's imprisonment, including medical supplies that he had been forced to process under duress and personal items that confirmed his continued presence in the area. Kate's photographs of the facility documented industrial-scale criminal operations that extended far beyond simple medicine theft, revealing connections to broader organized crime activities that threatened public health throughout the region. The discovery represented the culmination of her investigation but also the point of maximum danger, as the criminals would kill to protect such a valuable and incriminating operation. Kate realized that exposing the warehouse would trigger the final confrontation with the conspiracy, requiring all her skill and courage to survive the inevitable violent response. The crucial revelation came when Kate discovered that Marcus was being held not as a prisoner but as a coerced participant, forced to use his medical knowledge to process and authenticate the stolen medicines under threat to his life. Her careful approach to the mine facility revealed that Marcus was physically present but working under armed guard, his medical expertise making him valuable enough to keep alive despite the risk he represented to the conspiracy. The realization that her fiancé was suffering not just imprisonment but forced participation in criminal activity intensified Kate's determination to expose the conspiracy and secure his freedom. Marcus's coded messages had included information about the guards' routines and the facility's vulnerabilities, providing Kate with intelligence for planning his rescue in coordination with the federal raid. The discovery that Marcus was alive and actively working to undermine the conspiracy from within transformed Kate's mission from investigation to coordinated rescue operation. Agent Hayes confirmed that federal resources were being mobilized for the operation, but Kate understood that success would require perfect timing and exceptional courage from everyone involved. The crucial revelation about Marcus's forced participation provided both hope and urgency as Kate prepared for the most dangerous phase of her mission. Marshal Reynolds's mask slipped when he discovered Kate's federal communications and realized her investigation threatened a multi-state criminal empire. At the boarding house, he cornered Kate with his hand on his gun, declaring she had caused more trouble than you're worth. Mrs. Garrett's terrified presence revealed the criminals' intent to silence witnesses, and Kate understood Agent Hayes might be walking into a trap. Reynolds believed her evidence could be destroyed and her death staged, but his overconfidence gave Kate tactical advantages. Drawing on her Pinkerton training, Kate feigned compliance while preparing for violence and shielding Michael. Mrs. Garrett's distractions gave her precious moments to position herself, and maternal desperation fueled her resolve. The danger escalated when Priscilla Adams arrived, coldly ordering Reynolds to make it look like an accident. Kate realized she was facing hardened killers who would never negotiate. The crisis forced her to embrace her detective identity, casting aside the facade of helpless widow and drawing on skills long suppressed. The turning point came with Agent Hayes' arrival and a federal raid timed with Kate's intelligence. Reynolds and Priscilla were trapped as federal marshals uncovered stolen medicines and documented a trafficking network across several states. Kate's evidence and courage exposed the operation, earning Hayes' respect. Amid the raid, Marcus was rescued from the mine facility, weak from captivity, but mentally strong. Though they had begun as strangers bound by correspondence, shared danger forged bonds deeper than ordinary courtship. With Reynolds, Priscilla, and their associates arrested, justice spread beyond Copper Ridge. Trials secured maximum sentences, thanks to Marcus's testimony and Kate's meticulous records. The operation's destruction restored medical care to communities long defrauded, and Marcus's documentation became a federal model. The final decisive act came when Kate seized Priscilla's ledger, with Marcus decoding its entries and Michael spotting her escape attempt, proving the entire family had transformed through ordeal. The aftermath established a new equilibrium. Copper Ridge, freed from corruption, welcomed Kate, Marcus, and Michael as heroes. Their marriage, built on mutual respect and sacrifice, marked a fresh beginning. Kate's reputation as a detective grew, even as she embraced her role as doctor's wife and partner in justice. Federal oversight expanded, Marcus's medical practice became a model of integrity, and Kate's skills remained vital in exposing corruption. Reflecting on her journey, Kate recognized that desperation as a bride had evolved into a calling of justice and service. Her bond with Marcus and Michael, and the gratitude of Copper Ridge, proved that courage and truth could overcome entrenched corruption. Agent Hayes' offer of future federal collaboration promised that Kate's extraordinary story was only the beginning of a lifetime committed to justice on the frontier.